If you've never solved a Rubik's Cube, it may seem like an impossible task, but in this tutorial, I'm going to show you 7 easy steps to help you figure it out. There are 3 different types of pieces on the Rubik's Cube: the centerpiece, the edge piece, and the corner piece. They each move in their own different ways. For instance, centerpieces will always be opposite to the respective color, so white will always be opposite of yellow, blue will always be opposite of green, and orange will always be opposite of red, and vice versa. Another important thing to learn about centerpieces is that they determine what color the face will be. So for instance, this face is going to be the white side, this is going to be the orange, the blue, the red, the green, and the yellow. When it comes to edge and corner pieces, there's not much to learn. You just need to know the edge pieces have 2 colors on them, and corners will have 3. Before you get to solving the cube, you're going to need to learn what's called notation. Notation represents moves in algorithms that you do on a cube in order to solve it. The moves in notation are represented by a letter that corresponds to a certain face of the cube. So, this is our up face, represented by a U, the front face, represented by an F, the right face, represented by an R, the left face, represented by an L, the down face, represented by a D, and finally the back face, represented by a B. The easiest way to learn notation, which are the moves in an algorithm, is to visualize a clock on the face you're turning. So, for a front face, also known as F face, a clock would be moving in this direction. So in an algorithm, it would be represented as simply an F. So this is an F move here, and an F prime, which is moving in the counterclockwise direction, would be like so. And in an algorithm, an F prime would be represented just as an F, but with an apostrophe by it. Same goes for all the other faces. So for U, if you had a clock, it would be moving in this direction. So this is a U, simply represented as a letter U in the algorithm. And a U prime, represented as a U with an apostrophe, looks like so. Now for the right, left, back, and down faces, it's a bit more complicated, as you can't exactly see the direction that it's turning from a front point of view. You have to sort of envision it at a side angle. So if you turn to look at it, a clock would be rotating like so. So this is just a regular R move, represented as an R in an algorithm, and an R prime, counterclockwise, looks like that, with an apostrophe in an algorithm. The left is opposite, however. So a left move, instead of going up, is going down, because if you turn to look at it from the side angle, you can see a clock would be moving like this. So this is an L, and this is an L prime, counterclockwise. For the D face, you can sort of turn to look at it like that, and you can see the clock would be moving in this direction, therefore a D is like that. And obviously a D prime is the opposite one. And finally, for the back face, this one's the hardest to visualize in my opinion. You can sort of turn to look at it like that, move your finger, rotate it to the back, and sort of keep moving it, and you can see a B, or a back move, would be like this. And then finally a B prime would be in the opposite direction, like so. In an algorithm, you may see the number 2 after a move. So for instance, you might see R2, which just represents you doing an R move twice, like that. Or U2, or any other move really. Now that you've learned notation, I encourage you to practice it and see if you can memorize all the moves without looking at the video. Once you can do that, you're ready for the first step, the white cross. Like the name suggests, the white cross is all the white edges in a cross shape. However, with edges having 2 colors on them, you need to make sure that they are solved to the respective centerpieces. So for example, the white and blue cross edge is solved to the white and blue centerpieces, just like the orange and white, green and white, and red and white. To start off, you're going to want to hold the white centerpiece on top, and you're going to look for edges that have white on them that are in the D layer, so this one right here. As you can see, I have the white and green edge, and the white and blue edge. If you don't have any edges in the D layer, like I do, That's okay, I'll cover that shortly, but you'll still need to watch this part of the tutorial. When a white edge is in the D layer, there are two cases. One where the white side is facing us, and one where it's facing down. I'll be covering the case where it's facing us first. You're going to want to pay attention to the second color on it. As you can see, it's green. So you need to locate the green centerpiece, as this edge needs to go between the green and the white centerpiece. You're going to move it so that it's under the green centerpiece. So you're going to adjust the D layer like that. You might need to do it another way for you. For example, if you have it on the other side, you're going to need to move the D layer the other way. The important part is you adjust the D layer and move it underneath the centerpiece where it needs to go. Once you've done that, if the edge is facing you, like I said in the first case, you're going to use this algorithm to solve it. F prime, U prime, R, U. In the second case, where the edge is in the D layer and the white side is facing away from us, we're going to use the same principle of moving it underneath the centerpiece where it needs to go. So as you can see, the color is blue. So we're going to line it underneath the blue centerpiece, which happens to be on the right side. So we're going to line it up like so using a D. And now it matches. For this case, all we need to do is an F2, like so, and that will solve it. If you don't have any white cross edges in the D layer and it's stuck in one of the middle slots, what you do is you rotate the cube so that the edge is in the right layer, or the R layer, and you do the simple 3-move algorithm to take it out and put it in the bottom layer, or the D layer. So you do R prime, D prime, R, and now it's in the bottom layer, and you can just go ahead and solve it. The final tricky case of the white cross is when you have an edge that's flipped. What you do is you hold it in the F layer, and you simply do F2 to move it to the bottom. And you can go ahead and solve it again. Now that you mastered the white cross, I encourage you to do it without the tutorial. Once you can do so, you're ready for the second step, the white corners. The objective of the second step, or the white corners, is to build the first layer of the Rubik's Cube. It will end up looking like this. The concept of this is actually quite similar to that of the white cross. In fact, it's actually easier as it requires less thinking. Firstly, you're going to look in the D layer to see if you have any corners with white on them. We'll use this one, the white, orange, and blue corner. Like the white cross, you're going to line it up underneath its respective centerpieces, so the orange and blue centerpiece. You can see it's lined up underneath the orange one, but the blue and green here don't match, so it has to go here instead. You're going to use this algorithm to solve it. It may take up to 5 times of repetition to do so. In this case, it's going to take us 3 times. The algorithm is R prime, D prime, R, D. And you're going to keep repeating that until the corner is solved. Note, this one wasn't the right corner, so we're going to keep doing it until this one is solved. And there you go. To give you a better understanding, I'm going to walk you through the last 3 corners. Here we have the white, green, and orange corner. So we're going to find the orange and the green centerpieces. They're right here. So we're going to adjust it so it's underneath them, like so. And in this case, it's going to take the algorithm 5 times in order to solve it. And one more time. And it's solved. And now we just have 2 corners left, so it doesn't really matter which one we go for. I'll use this one. It's already lined up underneath, as you can see, red, red, blue, blue. So we'll just go ahead and do it. And one more time. Solved. And then we got lucky again, it's already lined up underneath where they need to go. And last time. And the face is done. You may encounter the case where the corner is stuck or flipped. To move it into the bottom row, you're simply going to do the same algorithm. R prime, D prime, R, D, and then you can just go ahead and solve it again. You may also run into the case where the white part of the corner is solved, but it's not in between its correct centerpieces, as you can see by these two colors. You're going to use the same principle of putting it into the bottom row and then moving it to where it needs to be solved. And to put it into the bottom row, you're going to simply do R prime, D prime, R, D, and now you can find the, in this case, orange and blue centerpieces, which are here, line it up underneath them, and solve it. The corner can also be flipped and in the correct spot, so you're going to use the same principle again, just take it out, put them into the bottom row like this, R prime, D prime, R, D, and then you can go ahead and line it up in between its correct centerpieces and solve it. Congrats, you've now solved 1/3 of the cube. I encourage you to take yours, scramble it up, and see if you can do these first 2 steps without looking at the tutorial. Once you can do so, you're ready for the 3rd step, the middle layer. Like the name suggests, the goal of the middle layer is to solve the middle layer of the cube. Once you've completed it, it will look something like this. You can start off by going ahead and flipping the white face to the bottom, or the D layer. We're now going to be focusing on the middle layer edges, which don't contain yellow or white on them. To find these middle layer edges, we're going to have to look in the up face, or the U layer. Like I said, the middle layer edges do not have yellow or white on them. Let's start off with this one, the red and the blue edge piece. Like the previous 2 steps, we're going to have to take into consideration what the centerpieces are that this edge fits in between. It's very easy to tell the centerpieces as you just look at the 2 colors, red and blue. So it must go between the red and the blue centerpieces. To start off, you're going to line it up so it matches either one of them. In this case, it matches the blue centerpiece. Obviously, if you look at it, it needs to go into the right slot, as the left slot would be the incorrect one. If it needs to go into the right slot, you're going to use this algorithm. U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F. And now the edge is where it needs to be. Let's look at our next case. I'll use the orange and the blue edge piece as an example. Like I said, we need to match it up so it matches one of the centerpieces. It doesn't match here, but it matches with the blue again. Unlike the other case, this edge has to move into the left slot, so we're going to use a different algorithm. It's important to learn both of them, as you'll need to know them both. U prime, L prime, U, L, U, F, U prime, and F prime. We'll solve it if it needs to go into the left slot. As you can see, we now have 2 edges solved. Carrying on, we'll finish up the last 2 edges. Let's use this one. We're lucky as it's already lined up, so we just need to look at where the edge needs to go. It needs to go into the right slot, so we'll use the first algorithm. U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F. And for our last edge, it's right here. We'll line it up with its centerpiece. We can see it needs to go to the right again, so we'll use the same algorithm. U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F. It's very important that you're able to differentiate between the 2 cases. One where the edge needs to go to the right slot, and the other where it needs to go to the left. The one where the edge needs to go to the right slot is as follows. U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F. And the one where it needs to go to the left slot is U prime, L prime, U, L, U, F, U prime, F prime. At some point, you'll run into the scenario where the edge is flipped in between its centerpieces. To get it out into the top layer, you're going to use the right algorithm, so where the edge needs to go to the right slot. First, you're going to have to make sure that the edge is in the R layer, not the left layer. Following, you're going to do the algorithm U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F, and the edge will end up back here, in which you can just line it up and resolve it. You might also run into the case where there's a middle layer edge in the wrong spot. Like the flipped edge case, you're going to hold it in the right row and do the same algorithm to take it out. U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F. And then you're just going to find it and solve it. Congrats! You've now learned 2/3 of the Rubik's Cube. Like the other steps, I encourage you to go ahead and see if you can do it without the tutorial. Once you can, you're ready for the next step, the yellow cross. In the 4th step, the yellow cross, you'll be orienting the 4 yellow edges in the pattern of a cross. After you've completed the 3rd step, or the middle layer, you'll run into one of these 4 cases. One where no yellow edges are solved, one where 2 are solved in a line shape, the other one where 2 are solved in an L shape, and the last one where the yellow cross is already done for you. Although these 3 cases where getting the yellow cross is the main objective are completely different, they can all be solved with relative ease using just one algorithm over and over. It's important to know that these 3 cases can appear in any order after you've done the middle layer, so you won't always have to end up going from the dot case to this case to this case to the cross. You may just have to do the algorithm 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, or if you get lucky, you can already have the cross solved like that. Starting off with the first case, where no yellow edges are oriented, otherwise known as the dot case, characterized by just the yellow centerpiece, you can hold it however you'd like, as long as white is on the bottom. You're going to use this simple algorithm to get an L shape with the yellow edges on top. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. Although the yellow corners can be somewhat confusing, you're just paying attention to this L shape with the edges. So you can disregard this block here if you have it. What you're going to do is you're going to end up holding it like so, where the 2 unsolved yellow edges are like this. And you're going to do the same algorithm. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. Like mentioned before, don't let the corners distract you. You're just looking for the shape of the edges. In this case, we have the line shape, which we can just hold the line, sort of like a hot dog, right here, and do the algorithm one more time. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. Now you have the yellow cross. Now that you've learned up to the yellow cross, I encourage you to take your cube, scramble it up, and see if you can do it all by memory. Once you can, you're ready for the next step, solving the yellow corners. In this 5th step, you're going to go from the yellow cross to having the yellow side solved. The algorithm required to solve the yellow side is actually the same one as this one, where you put the white corner up into the top layer. R prime, D prime, R, D. The first step is to find any unsolved yellow corner. By unsolved, I mean where yellow isn't up top. So for example, this one, or this one. Before we do the algorithm, you're going to need to move the unsolved corner into the bottom right on the top layer. So right here. We can use this one or this one. I'll use this one. So we're going to have to do a U prime to move it here. Now that it's where it needs to be, we can do R prime, D prime, R, D until the top part here is yellow. Now you can see it's solved, and we need to move the other unsolved corner into this spot here. In this case, it's a U2. And now we just repeat the same algorithm until this is solved. Let's try another example. This one will require a bit more moves as it has more corners unsolved. Let's start with this one. Again, doing R prime, D prime, R, D until this part is yellow. Again, it may take up to 4 times until this part's yellow. Now we can find any other unsolved yellow corner. We'll do this one. So move it over into here using a U. And do that again. You can see those corners both took 4 times to do it. Let's look at the other 2 unsolved ones. We'll start with this one. So move it over with a U and do it again. And final one. Move it over with the U again. We'll go ahead and do one more example. Let's start with this corner. Move over here. Do R prime, D prime, R, D until yellow is solved up here. Move the next unsolved corner into the same spot. And the final corner. Now that you've learned the yellow side, go ahead, re-scramble your cube, and do it all from memory. Once you can do so, you're ready for the 6th and second to last step, the yellow corners. Even though we just dealt with the yellow corners in the previous step, we're going to be solving them again. Our goal is to make the cube go from something like this to this, where the corners line up with their centerpieces. There are 3 scenarios you can get in this step. The first one is where you have 2 corners matching. The second one is where you have no corners matching. And the third one is where all of your corners are matching, aka solved. And for this one, you'll just do the next step, but you'll still have to learn the one we're doing right now. If you have them, it can sometimes be tricky to find 2 matching corners, so you'll have to look a bit. In this case, the 2 matching corners are the red ones. We're going to start off by putting them in the back, just like so. And we're going to use this algorithm to solve the 2 corners in front. R prime, F, R prime, B2, R, F prime, R prime, B2, R2. Now all the corners are solved relative to their centerpieces. In the case where you have no matching corners, you can simply just hold yellow on top and any other color in front, and do the same algorithm. R prime, F, R prime, B2, R, F prime, R prime, B2, R2. And you should find that you have 2 other matching ones now. You can just repeat the previous step, hold them in the back, do the algorithm again, and all your corners will be solved. like so. Now that you've learned up to the yellow corners and are ready for your final step, like always, I encourage you to scramble up your cube, do it all over again until you get to here. Like the previous one, on our final step, we will have two cases. One where there is a solved side besides yellow and white, and one where there is no other solved side. I'll start off with the example where there is no solved side. You can hold yellow on top and any other color in front. You're going to do the algorithm F2, U, L, R prime, F2, L prime, R, U, F2. And there should be a solved side. Once you have a solved side, you're going to go ahead and turn that side to the back, so it's on the B layer. Then you're going to do that same algorithm. It can take up to 2 times for you to solve the cube. F2, U, L, R prime, F2, L prime, R, U, F2. And one more time. Solved. I hope this tutorial was helpful, clear, and easy to follow. If you're further interested in getting quicker at speed cubing, I'll have another video with some tips, tricks, and more algorithms on how to get faster. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.